The July 18th, 2022 City Council meeting. If we would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll.
Councilmember Hewlin.
Here.
Parker.
Present.
Dolby.
Here.
Schroeder. Beach. Here. Richardson.
Steve, are you there still? All right. Well, we'll see if he gets back on. We will now move on to the public comment section.
I'm present, yes.
Thank you. If you would like to talk about something that's not on the agenda tonight, please come forward and state your name and address. We will hear you out. All right, moving forward, no public comment. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be pulled?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to pull B claims.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to pull F1, F2, G and H.
F1, F2, G, and H. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve everything with the exception of item B, F1, F2, G, and H?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All right. Continue.
Councilmember Parker.
Aye.
Dolby.
Aye.
Schroeder. Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
All right, moving on to item B.
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Thank you.
You bet.
Moving on to item B, approval of claims. Can I get a first and second?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Discussion? You had this one pulled.
Yes.
Dolly,
Aye.
Schroeder, Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Recuse.
and Parker.
Aye.
All right, moving on to item F1, which is the disc golf tournament concessions. We have, we'll just do, Doug, we can do F together, right?
Yeah, you've got to do each one separately.
Okay. So
Yeah.
F1, a resolution suspending enforcement of the Indianola Code 47.01, 11 regarding the sale and consumption of alcohol in city parks for the disc golf tournament at Pickard Park as requested by Hy-Vee Food Store. Can I get a first and second motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Mayor, the only reason I asked to pull this is that I think that whenever we waive or ask to suspend the rules for certain items, that we should at least give the public an option to speak on this. I have no complaints with it. I just think we need to make sure that we do those in a timely manner and a transparent manner.
Any other discussion? Thanks, Steve. Cassandra?
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
That's a good point, Steve. Moving on to F2, I have approval of a new liquor license for Hy-Vee Inc., DBA Hy-Vee Indianola Des Moines Disc Golf Tournament or Tour. Apologize. First and second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Mayor, could we just have Ben or somebody, Doug or someone explain exactly what's going on with both of these issues? I know we've already voted on the one, but can we have somebody explain what's happening with 1 and 2 here?
Sure. So this is the golf tournament that we have down at Pickard Park. Doug's here to answer any questions that you might have, but this is an opportunity to have a nationally renowned tournament here in our park and have the opportunity to have alcohol sales at that event through Hy-Vee.
All right, so Mayor and Council, Doug Byland, Parks and Recreation Director. Nate Fails here from Hy-Vee. He can answer more specific questions you might have. As you know, the Disc Golf Pro Tour will be having the Des Moines Challenge, True Bank Des Moines Challenge presented by Discraft. Got to get all the sponsors in there, right?
Yes.
On August 19th through 21st, we'll have a lot of events coming up for that day, including a live concert on Saturday. But Hy-Vee has been chosen to be the official food and beverage concessionaire for the tournament. So that's why what we need to do, we cannot allow beer sales in the park. So that's why we suspend the ordinance. And then they have to get a temporary alcohol permit for that weekend.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Doug.
Is there more than just beer being sold? Just beer in can form. Okay. Great. That's it. Any questions for me? No.
Thanks. Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. All right. Cassandra.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
and Beach.
Aye. All right, we'll move on. Can I get a first and second motion for item G, which is a resolution approving a payment application number 3 in the amount of $126,303.40 and change order number 1 in the amount of $2,886 for Absolute Concrete for the 2022 infrastructure improvement project at West Boston Avenue.
So moved as read.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And discussion.
Mayor, can someone explain? Ben did a nice job on an email to me, but I think just for public reason, if he could explain what this change order is about, or AP, one of the two, whomever best describes it.
Sure. Ultimately, when you open the ground, you determine exactly where the utilities are in the ground. This water line is much deeper that it's connecting to as opposed to where it was in the plans. And so there's additional costs needed for the bends necessary to be able to connect the new water line to the old water line and the work involved in putting that connection in. For any detailed explanation though, we have AP here is much better than I am at answering this.
Did you say the existing line was deeper or shallower?
The existing line is much deeper.
Deeper.
All right. Cassandra.
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Aye.
First and second motion for resolution approving payment application number 12 in the amount of $482,097.52. Change order number 7 in the amount of $19,387.26 from Absolute Concrete for the square reconstruction project.
So moved as read.
Thank you. Second, thank you. And discussion.
Again, if we can just have somebody explain what happened here and why we had to have a change order here on this would be nice.
Sure, I'll give a high-level explanation. Charlie's here to answer any questions you might have in a detailed form, but ultimately, at the onset of this project, this portion of concrete in the sidewalk was overtly kept out of the project because it was technical and the elevations were such that it made it very difficult to have that bidding. We at that time, the staff at that time, with the support of the council, ultimately decided not to include that portion. However, on deeper reflection and getting into the project, it's recognized that under the mishmash facade there, that this would look very odd not having this project portion of sidewalk completed. And also there is a slope issue, ensuring that we had proper slope with the water diverted away from the building that was necessary to have this go forward. So it's before you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra?
Dolly,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
All right, we will move on to item number 6, council reports. We received and filed the treasurer's report, the June 2022 treasurer's report. Guess I
Thank
need
you,
a first
Mayor.
and second motion to
Council members,
So moved as read.
things.
Second.
Sorry, Doug.
That's
That's
right,
okay.
sorry.
All right,
Second.
go ahead. Thank you.
all right, now,
Yes, thanks, Doug.
Here's that.
okay, the report, Mayor and council members, before you is for the 12 months ended June of 2022. And what we see is many changes from May. There's some lots of transfers and things that went on in this report, and some of them are, 4 or 5 million, so it makes a lot of difference. But I did go back and look at a year ago, and what I call the general fund, but Andy had to kind of educate me on the general fund because it's more than those 8 funds at the top. Some down below pertain to that also. But those 8 funds at the top, which I refer to as a general fund, grew about $634,000 from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And then in that local option sales tax, it went from I think it was about 8 million a year. It wouldn't be 8 million a year ago, but anyway, it went down almost $6 million, but it was a transfer out. And I'm sure they're paying for the new plant or whatever, some debt or whatever the situation might be. And then a big transfer in for the vehicle reserve. And so there was a lot of movement there. And then from a year ago to this year, there's those 3 capital funds, Hillcrest, K Street, and the ARPA funds. They amount to about 7.5 million. So that makes quite a difference. But those being in the fund balances have grown about 6.5 million. So, and then not too much in the sewer. The health plan did have about 457,000 growth, which at the end of June of 2022, we had some 43 million in fund balances. And the only thing that I had to think about a while, and I don't think I've got a very good explanation, but down under the interest rates, Bankers Trust a year ago was 1.72%. And at the end of this year, it's 1.57. And generally, they usually just do the opposite of that. They would grow, but it must have been the mix of whatever they had invested in. Let's see. And the only other one would be the sweep account. It's at 1.15 and it was at 0.4. So that's a reflection I think we could see today in interest rates. So that would be my report, subject to any questions.
Mayor,
Absolutely, Steve. Go ahead.
could, Andy sent out an email. Did everybody get that email or was that just, I think it was to everyone, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so just for the public's knowledge, Andy, would you kind of quickly run through why we ended up with a $633,732 increase in revenues for this particular year?
Yeah, Mayor, members of council, I sent out that email earlier. Basically, the main reasons were the savings that we had because our city manager had left halfway through the year. So we're without a city manager, without a police chief for most of the last year. We've had some increase in salaries for people that were covering those positions, but of course, they were still being paid for their old positions. We did have an increase in the EMS fees, which I'll cover later once we do I do a environmental scan recap of last year's revenues. But overall, it was mainly not fully staffed and have some increase in revenues.
And then we also had the 300,000 on the franchise free increase. Did we transfer that to the street department or is that still in the franchise fee budget?
That's still the franchise fee budget. We do that transfer every other year. Last year we did transfer. FY22 we did not do a transfer. Next year in FY23 we'll do about 500,000 to the 300 the fund 322, which is for street repairs.
Okay. Thank you. Also, I don't know, I apologize for not getting this question to you sooner. The question on the local option sales tax, we ended up the year then with did I read that correctly? Hold on a second here. I got about three things in front of me. About a $209,000 or about a $300,000 over budget of what we'd budgeted. Is that correct? Or is that somewhere in that neighborhood?
It would probably be about that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And that's not been encumbered in any way, shape or form so far. Is that correct?
Well, we still have about 500,000 left in local option sales tax, but that'll be used for the wastewater treatment plant.
Right, but I mean, the overage that we had of about 300,000, that's not been encumbered or is that going to the wastewater treatment plant?
It'll be going to the wastewater treatment.
Okay, okay, that's what I was wondering about. Okay, thank you both, Doug and Andy, I appreciate it.
Doug,
Yeah, I think a motion is to be approved.
Yep.
Oh, you already did?
Yeah. we
Yeah. It's hard for me to convince you that I was listening.
did. Right.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, so all those in favor to receive and file the June 2022 treasurer's report, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, perfect. I need a first and second motion to receive and file the May 2022 EMS billing activity report.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
I just have a quick question, I guess. So I see these activity reports and amounts that increases every month. Well, what are those funds used for? So like in May it was 755,000, and then in June it's 869,000. Where do those funds eventually get distributed to?
Andy takes them.
Any chance?
So actually, you'll see after the June, he actually takes
Okay.
almost all of it down to about 40,000.
That makes sense.
And yeah, and then he'll,
We just transferred it into our main checking account. We account for it in our accounting system, but as far as the account itself, we transfer that into our checking.
Thank you.
there's one more, I know, so might as well just.
Yeah, might as well.
It looks like our numbers are always consistent around the 230 mark of calls on a monthly basis.
It's been increasing. It normally is between 180 and 200. Yeah. It's just the number of calls that the
Is that
communities
just in
request.
the last couple of months have been going
Yeah,
up?
it's jumped up quite a bit. And if you look at that and actually the June, if you'll notice the numbers in the June, the collections really jumped, but I think a lot of that was due to what we call the GEMT, which is the Ground Emergency Medical Transport. That's the program that the state is we're contracted in with the state on that, collecting with Medicaid and Medicare.
How are we doing on staff? I know this is cut off of the activity report, but I saw in the salaries, we had a few salaries for the EMS. Are those new positions or are those just a step rate increase?
As far, well, we're in the process right now of hiring 4 full-time, but those were existing positions we had to fill. Coming up probably in the next couple weeks, we will be promoting 3 internally to fire captains to manage the divisions.
Will those 4 new ones, will that fully staff you or will you still be
No.
short?
Yeah, we'll be short. We're working there.
Great. Thank you.
We have first and second to receive and file the May 2022 EMS billing activity report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I need a first and second motion to receive and file the June 2022 EMS billing activity report.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? You want me to get back? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to 6D, Councilmember John Parker will give.
Do not have a report, unfortunately. They, at the last minute, and they moved the meeting to a date that I could not make it, and yet everybody else could, whereas before, nobody else could come, and so they couldn't get a quorum. So I'm waiting to get a report back from them so I can report to what, so the next meeting I'll have a report as to what took place at that meeting, so.
And Steve, I think you have maybe a report on your.
Yeah, on Metro Area Advisory Committee, if I could just take a few moments, I'd just kind of run through. I think, again, I sent a copy of an article out of Des Moines Register, I believe, to all the members. It was an article on fireworks. The MAC meeting spent probably 20-25 minutes discussing fireworks from some of the various members. That newspaper article just kind of touched on a couple of those. I know we're going to discuss this in our August meeting. And I'm sure you all have been getting some interesting things sent to you via email regarding fireworks in Indianola. But just a quick rundown of that. Johnston talking about how the fire chief was trying to work with some ways to make some things enforceable there. They had a number of complaints in Johnston. City of Des Moines, if you read that article, had damage to a library. They had I guess they shot some things off in the sculpture park, damaged the downtown library. A couple of parks were severely damaged with fireworks displays. Waukee had a number of issues. Some kids were setting some fireworks off in a parking lot while the city's annual display was being shot off as well, and caused some damage there. Interestingly, from the city of Perry, they completely banned fireworks this year, and they went to a strict enforcement of citations on use of fireworks within their community. The mayor there, John Andorf, talked about the fact that they actually were very quiet this year because once they started issuing citations, people must have gotten a notice on that. But again, you can still sell them. State legislature deals with that. One other thing, at the MAC meeting, there was a long presentation by the City of Des Moines wastewater treatment facility director talking about using, trying to remove phosphorus from their systems. They ended up using a system that allows them to pull out a product called Struvite. It's if I'm not mistaken, I'm not a chemist, but it is a item that forms with phosphorus, magnesium, and ammonia when they get together in the system. It requires a lot of maintenance to get that so it doesn't plug up the pipes and everything else. And I'm sure Rick knows all about this, but the city of Des Moines has been working on new technology that allows them to capture the Struvite and then to create fertilizer pellets out of that and actually turn that into a money-making process for them, as well as the methane in that facility. And that kind of lent me on to ask Ben to set up some meetings. I know we're going to talk about this, or at least go out and visit the new plant and ask whether or not we can do those there. But that's really an interesting thing from the city of Des Moines and how they capture methane and sell that, and then also the struvite pellets for fertilizer. So that's my report, Mayor.
Great, thanks, Steve. Okay, we will move on to 6E. I need a first and second motion to reappoint Grant Dar to the Indianola Public Arts Commission for a term beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending July 1st, 2025.
So moved as read.
Thank you. Discussion. Sandra?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Gillen.
Aye.
Welcome back, Board Grant. I need moving on to 6F, I need a first and second motion to appoint Scott Duncan to Hometown Pride Committee for a term beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending July 1st, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All right, cool.
Richardson,
Aye.
Gillen,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
And moving on to 6G, I need a first and second motion to appoint Melissa Sons to the Hometown Pride Committee for a term beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending July 1st, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Did have one question on this actually, Ben. Melissa Sons asked me about it. They are only year terms. Is that what we do for Hometown Pride? Maybe Doug may-
They could question for Doug.
2 years.
They're offsetting, so this is just to fill out terms.
Okay, so, all right,
2 year
perfect.
terms.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions?
Richardson,
Aye.
Gillen,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
All right, welcome aboard to Scott and Melissa. We'll move on to the mayor's report. Last week, Ben, myself, and Chief Shear had an opportunity to attend a press conference with the governor at the Department of Public Safety regarding fentanyl use in our communities, and that it is slowly leaking, and it was very informative. And I can't even give you all the details. Brian would be much better than that, but they actually, this was based off of a kid who attended Carlisle High School, and he overdosed last year, July 31st. We're coming up on a year. So it is making its way more and more. That's a sad note, but on a positive note, we have big things coming up. We have the Sky Parade that is happening this Thursday from 5 to 8 p.m. So hopefully everybody enjoys that. Just look up and get to see everybody. That's really all I have. Pretty short and sweet. Okay, so we'll move on. Discussion regarding bird scooters. I believe Kylie Wedman with Bird Scooters is on Zoom to answer any questions. And so I wanted this to be on the agenda. I don't know how many of you are getting questions or calls about it, but it seems to be that they're staying in some places dead for a long time. So I can speak. We had one in our front yard for over a week. So I guess we want to see how we can be better partners, and maybe Kylie can have some recommendations. Are you there, Kylie?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Hi. Yeah.
Hi, Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I think just to start off, I know since we relaunched back 2 months ago, I always think it's helpful to go over some high-level numbers, just a quick status update on the program thus far of the past couple months. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go over some of that data and then dive into a Q&A and can talk about, a better partnership moving forward and how to address some of the concerns that we're seeing throughout the city.
Perfect.
So since we've relaunched back in May, so we hibernated our birds, took them off the road and then relaunched back in May, we have actually had 2,621 rides total and over 4,000 miles traveled as well on the scooters. So working with Charlie, the city does have access to all of the data that we see on our end as well. So details such as where birds are going, where people are riding them, the average distance that someone is riding as well. So that is access that we look at very closely, but also give to the city. So if there's anything there that you guys aren't seeing that you would like to see, please let me know, and I can always dive in deeper to get additional data points if there's something that you're not seeing on the city end that you would like insight into. But also with that, we've already saved a half metric ton of CO2. And the way that we calculate this is basically assuming that for every scooter ride, that pretty much replaces about 40% of the emissions that a car would emit on one ride. So with the ridership that we've seen over the past 2 months, we are already halfway to saving another metric ton throughout Indianola. So obviously Bird is here to provide equitable and sustainable transportation. So looking at that data is very important for us as well. So I always like to highlight that when speaking with the cities that I work with as well. That said, I am pretty recent to the Indianola team, and I've worked with Charlie on a couple of the complaints that have come through, and I understand the top 2 complaints are charging and then parking. So taking a look at the tickets that we've had come through, there's been pretty much mostly around parking, but on our end, we have not seen too many come in about charging and having dead scooters. So not saying that doesn't exist, but I would love to work on communication and getting out our support ticket methods to the community and partnering with you on that, so that when these do come in, we can remedy and have a better insight on our end into where we need to make adjustments. As much as I would like to know, every single thing that's going on in Indianola, I trust you all. You're the ones seeing the program on the day-to-day. So having that open communication between myself and the city is super imperative, but then also creating an area for the community to actually report tickets as well. So what we've done on our end is started to look at the response time of our fleet managers for the tickets that we are seeing. And we generally are seeing responses within 2 to 4 hours. Worst case, I think the worst one I saw that we actually got insight into was the next morning following a 5 p.m. ticket request. So with that, I would love to hear your feedback, specific instances, and maybe we can work through some solutions on improving our operations in Indianola.
So I guess my question would be, when we reinstated this contract, we were, at least I was under the impression that someone was going to be picking them up nightly or near nightly to recharge them and put them back at certain areas of the town. Is that not what's happening? Because you said that, like, you're talking about ticket response times and stuff like that. So are people having to request that they be picked up?
Yeah, so our operations in Indianola are from 4 a.m. to midnight. Obviously, midnight being the end to not have that late riding and some of that ridership that comes out of that. But then 4 a.m., if there is anybody, early commuters, that end is generally when we start our operations. So with that, we are dockless. So the way that this works is we don't actually have designated parking areas where the scooters, go in and out. But our fleet manager does rebalance the scooters. So what they'll do is essentially bring them back to areas of high demand. On their end, they have data that will notify them if a scooter hasn't been moved. Usually it catches all of them. Sometimes it doesn't, which is why I really appreciate you giving us insight into any scooters that have been there for more than 2 or 3 days, because they're dispersed throughout the city in areas that we see ridership in. But I understand that if someone rides a scooter home into their neighborhood, their neighbor might not want that scooter there. So that's where we respond to the tickets and bring those scooters back to areas of high demand that we are seeing ridership in. But no, they're not picked up off the ground every night and then replaced throughout the city.
Well, I think that's where the concern comes is, so the one in my front yard, I didn't report it because I wanted to see actually how long it'd take for someone to pick it up. But then we ended up riding it down the street and it died. And that's not your guys' fault. We knew how much charge was on it. But there's several people who they're not moving consistently. And our agreement, it says prior to placement of scooters, Bird shall receive approval from the city to designate parking areas. I think one of the concerns is coming is we have some businesses or even homeowners or, in the corners of properties where they're getting put there and these people, they don't know why they're getting put there. We had a couple businesses that were like, we don't want them here. I'm not sure that the Walmart parking lot is the best and safest spot, but it's accessible and it has parking. So I just don't know what the expectation is how often they get picked up. Because it doesn't seem every night. And the first guy that did it, it seemed like he did do it every single night. And
I think that's where when we had the negotiations, again, it was because of this exact issue. So I know in my neighborhood specifically, I have had several neighbors with multiple scooters parked in their yards, but they're not the ones that run at them. So kids are riding them. And I've seen lots of kids in my neighborhood riding them.
And
So-
technically under 18 should be
Yeah,
on it if you sign those agreements.
But
And that's our policy as well too. So on the underage riding front, I wasn't aware that there was a lot of underage riding in Indianola, but of course want to do what we can to help deter some of that. I do understand with summer, we normally see an uptick in underage riding. So this is only one aspect of what we're speaking of, I understand, but I will go ahead and put a targeted message out reminding riders that they can be fined and or banned if they are caught underage riding. With that too, if you report it to us, we can dig in, we can actually ban riders that are underage as well. So we do take that very seriously, and our intention is not for kids and high school students to be utilizing, the scooter as their transportation.
I mean, they're getting
10-year-olds.
They're getting parked at playgrounds in
Yeah.
elementary schools, so the kids are definitely taking them. And we enjoy them as a family, so I'm not against bird scooters. What was the solution? I feel like we're seeing a lot of the similar situations that Waukee was experiencing. What did they ever come up with a solution there? I don't know if you're working there or,
I am working with Waukee. However, I have only been with Waukee for about 2 months as well. And we have not had too many issues come through. We always expect a certain level of requests for birds to be moved or a business not wanting them parked. So we'll deal with that. But I was not privy to those conversations. However, I can dig in with the previous account manager, get some more insight into what went on with Waukee, see if there were specific solutions that they had that he feels might work for Indianola as well. I think the biggest thing here, if it is parking and not being utilized and rebalanced as often as we need to see, I think on my end, this is great insight to speak with my engagement team. They're the ones that actually manage our local logistics partners, our fleet managers, which are the individuals that are actually on the ground, rebalancing, charging, and doing maintenance. Like I said, we expect some level of concerns to be come in and people to report issues. But if you're seeing it on a macro level and you're seeing a pretty big increase in the volume, especially as it relates from our operations last year to this year, that means our fleet manager is not appearing our KPIs that we have. So I need to speak with my engagement team, have them have a conversation with our fleet manager, and they essentially will go on some sort of performance plan. They'll monitor them for about a month to see if they've seen an increase in their response times, the volume of scooters that are at a full charge or 50% charge, and basically go on a performance plan. And if that logistics partner is not keeping up to our standards, or if we're not seeing improvement, we will source a new fleet manager that can run the program better. So that's what my suggestion for a path forward right now. In addition to, I will have the targeted messaging go out about underage riding and general riding etiquette as well. And then the third piece of it is moving forward to, I know I partner with Charlie a lot, but if there is anything that needs to come through, Charlie can share my information, citywide. Please feel free to come directly to me with any concerns that you have. And I can always come on a future council meeting as well.
I think that's one of the concerns of the community is these scooters are left in multiple locations for multiple days and no one knows who to contact in order to have them picked up. I know just this last week, there was one left in my neighborhood on Monday morning. And when I left town on Friday night, it was still sitting on the same sidewalk it's been all week. And unfortunately, this hasn't been the first time I've seen that this year. So if we could somehow make a contact accessible so that wherever the scooter is left, we can contact and have it picked up.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
And too, as a city, our agreement says that we can pick them up if we need to, but I don't want our staff and our resources doing that.
No, and I don't know that that's our staff
Yeah,
or even
right.
our members' responsibility. I'm very curious, Kylie, do you guys have GPS where you can see if they've been left for a significant amount of time, or are you relying solely on reporting?
No, so we can, and that's the piece of me going back to my engagement team and asking for our fleet manager to be put on our internal performance plan, because we do have that data and they are notified. And so that means that they're not adhering to our standards that we need. So I'm going to go back to my engagement team and ask that they have that conversation, put them on that plan, and we see some good improvement there.
Yeah, that sounds like a good starting point. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And then on the communication side, I'll reach out to Charlie. We do have a couple different methods for the community to report: an online ticket form, a reporting system through the app. But what I can also do is create an Indianola 311 email that can be shared throughout the city, and I can work with their communications officer on getting that word out. Maybe it's putting it on a website, social media pages. That's what we see a lot of other cities do in terms of getting the word out for how the community can report things to BIRD. So it's not going through the city.
Mayor?
That would be great. I mean, I know some people don't want to download an app just to, report
Right.
out. And so I think the website, I think that's a great idea. We probably have to.
The only
work with
question
Charlie.
I would have would be because like one of my neighbors that had it parked in her yard, she's an elderly woman. She does not do internet, she does not do email, none of it. So how would she report something like that? I mean, besides coming to me directly,
I mean, we do have a support line. The reason why I don't always, being fully transparent with you all, it does go through a support company that we partner with. So the response time isn't great, but she is able to call in, and we do have that. I'll include that in the follow-up that I send with Charlie and working with him to get the communication out there. But we do have a general support line and a general support email. I just find if we're having issues with response time, it's better to create a city-specific email so that it does go directly to myself and to our fleet manager.
And really quick, Charlie DeSalle, Community Development Director. We, back on June 8th, had put out a Facebook post with just three methods that you could do it. The phone number was on there to use the BIRD app, or you could actually submit a ticket online. We did this because, believe it or not, we actually had citizens calling 911 because the scooters were parked in front of people's houses. So we had to do something to kind of counteract that. But I think what we can do, if we can get that email address, we can put that out here, and maybe what we can do is start recycling some of those social media push outs a little bit more. Because I don't think we've done one since then, but of course we didn't know that there was too much of an issue. But I just want to reiterate, I know our contract with BIRD does state that they have to respond, I think, within 4 hours. I don't have it in front of me what that time frame is. And Kylie did note that the complaints that they do get, for the most part, I think they're responding to those within those timeframes. So I think what we as a city just need to do is start getting that information out there, because I think the proof is in the pudding based off what she is saying is when they do actually get those complaints, they are responding to those within the time frames that we've specified. So I think that's really important. I think it's just on us to get that communication out there and show people how they can actually report these.
Is the 1-800 number, the toll-free number, is that on the scooter anywhere?
It is, yep. So we do have a sticker on each scooter that does list out general rules and then also contact methods as well.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
We've had some issues over in our neighborhood too, over on the east side. Especially with the young kids. I see kids coming out of Dayton Park a lot, riding the BIRD scooters. We have had some issues with not getting picked up. I would like, Charlie, if you would maybe share some of that information on how to get a hold of somebody, because I have had people ask me that information and just recently, not a long time ago, but if we can get that information to the council, so if somebody does ask, we can respond and give them that information as well. But I do think I would like to see you to come back again sometime, maybe August or at the end of the summer here, to kind of give us a recap. But I think we need to kind of keep an eye on this and not let it get past us down the road, because it is becoming a big issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Is it possible in some of those common areas that they're getting left, like at Buxton Park or up on the square, to have a designated parking, docking, whatever place? And, and part two, can some of the communications also include, like, I actually rented one and rode around town, had a lot of fun on it, and followed the directions of where you're supposed to park it, like it suggests on it, but maybe that communication also needs to be shared on the other side of, hey, reporting, but if you are enjoying one, please remember this when you're parking it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can basically do what I'll do is an app tutorial before rides start. I'll do this along with the underage riding that will give people a reminder of how to park out of the public right away, not blocking ADA accessibility, business fronts, etc. So I'll definitely target it that way as well.
What about the location?
And I was gonna say, and Kylie, I don't know, since you're only been here for a couple months now, when we set this up originally, we actually had, I want to say about 9 or 10 designated parking areas that when you do open the app, it'll actually show these parking areas. The one issue with Bird that we can't do is we can't force people to park them there in the end, because there's just no way to really do that unless you're following people around and policing them. But I think, Kylie, we had done some pushes on the app initially, and maybe that's something else we could do to kind of show the public, hey, these are our designated parking areas. So, you know, there's a couple around the square. I know the Y had one, Picker Park had one. We had some others by some trailheads and stuff like that. Just encouraging people, hey, you know, if your end right is in one of these areas, try to get it in this general vicinity right here, so we can kind of corral them all into certain areas.
Is there a way to apply a penalty if they don't?
I don't believe so. No, that's what we dealt with before. And it was just, you know, the freedom of the Bird scooter is that you're supposed to be able, if I want to, you know, rent one on the square and take it to my house and leave it in front of my house, I should be able to do that. And that's what they're really encouraging for those. So without doing that, you know, that way, you know, for me, for example, if I had to do that, you know, I'd have to go find one of those areas to drop it off or pay a fine. And then it's really just going to discourage riders at that point. So yeah, we talked through a lot of that. That was kind of our approach initially, but I'll be honest, as we talked through it with Bird, they kind of talked us out of that approach because they just didn't think it would be a very good method to use.
I didn't know if it would work for like just the areas surrounding like the businesses and stuff. If you could.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, let me connect with you, Charlie, after this about the parking as well and those original pins. Because I wasn't privy to that, and I'll have to look and see what our previous operations and that push was. I can probably likely recycle it. So that should be really simple on that end. But yeah, exactly right. Our whole thing is first mile, last mile. The goal is to have a scooter within, you know, a couple blocks that someone has parked at their destination, so that the next person coming along can either stumble across it or look in their app and pick it up, and they're not having to walk a couple blocks. They can just get on the scooter and, you know, take it that first mile, that last mile home or to a business, whatever it may be there. But we can definitely work on some methods in the app to guide riders to those original locations and get that information out to them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on Bird scooters? We will move on to item 8A1. I need a first and second motion to open the public hearing on a request to rezone property adjacent to 2110 Country Club Road from A1 Agriculture Zoning District to R1 Single Family Residential Detached Zoning District.
So moved as read.
Second.
Thank you. Charlie.
Hi, Charlie Sell, Community Development Director. Just some quick background on this one. Council probably will recall on March.
We have to have a vote on that. We have to open the public.
Oh, I'm
hearing.
sorry. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Sure.
Sandra, would you call for roll?
Dolby,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Gillen,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye. I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's it.
Yeah.
John, you're off your game.
I apologize. I should have waited for it. Anyways, I think council recalled that there was a rezoning of the parcel at 2110 Country Club Road approved by the council on March 7th of 2022. Since that time, that property owner has purchased an additional half-acre lot that is east and south of that parcel. They're looking at getting just an additional bit of land so they can space that single-family dwelling. They're looking at building there within that area. So as such, they need to rezone that parcel as well. From A1 to R1 just to match the zoning that was approved back in March. So pretty simple. I think all of the items that we reviewed back in March still apply to this day regarding utilities, comp plan designation, all of that. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
No complaints or objections on that.
Same thing. We've sent out letters on this new request, had a sign. I actually kept the sign that was posted there originally. So it's been there for about 5 months now. So.
Anyone from the public to speak? No? Okay. To get a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Parker,
Aye.
Dolby,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Gillen.
Aye.
Okay, so I need a first and second motion on a first consideration of a request to rezone property adjacent to 2110 Country Club Road from A1 agricultural zoning district to R1 single family residential detached zoning district.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Roll call.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Gillen.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Dolly.
Aye.
We'll move on. I need a first and second motion for resolution approving amendment number 2 to the agreement with Snyder and Associates for Hillcrest Avenue reconstruction project.
So moved as read.
Second.
Thank you. And discussion.
Do we know what parcels are affected with those two parcels that might have to have an easement?
I think there were roughly around 30 different parcels.
Oh, 30, okay.
Yeah, a number of parcels will get temporary construction easement. There are two drainage easements. There'll be permanent drainage easement. One is by the railroad crossing, or the trail, where the trail crosses by the Christmas Tree Farm on both sides of the street where the ready mix plant is, and Christmas Tree Farm is fairly large drainage there. So we'll probably want a permanent drainage easement. There's also another spot on the west end of the project near the clinic where we're going to have to extend the culvert that slopes pretty steep there. So we'll want to be able to put a sidewalk all the way through on the south side. So we have to extend the culvert into, there's like a little detention pond. So we have to get some permanent easement there as well. And this project is a little bit different because it has federal swap money. So the procedures and processes and the T's and the I's all have to go pretty much down the line.
That sidewalk going on the north side or south side of the
Sidewalk on the south,
side? Okay.
trail on the north.
Okay.
And this, if I could just ask a question here, then this is the resolution that agrees to a increase in the Snyder and Associates contract. Is that correct?
Correct. For right of way.
Yep, thank you.
So we have to get permission from the 30 parcel owners in order to do this project?
And we have to follow the federal guidelines. If not, we are risking our federal dollars that's associated with this project. So
Any other questions? Please stay safe, repeat.
Thank you.
Dolly.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Gillen.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
I need a first and second motion on a resolution authorizing an amendment to the Federal Surface Transportation Grant application to Central Iowa Regional Transportation Planning Alliance for Hillcrest Avenue reconstruction project.
Moved as read.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Mayor, just to make sure, and maybe AP, you can clarify this maybe quickly. This is due to the additional money that I mentioned, I think in the last report from CERTPA, we got additional monies. Is that correct?
no, this is due to basically there's been a increase in construction costs, significant increase since 2020. So
Okay.
what's happening is we are trying to maximize our federal dollars for this. The maximum we can use is roughly around $3.8 million. Currently, our request is for 3.1. So we are maximizing and borrowing 4 years in advance of what we are allocated. So every year we are allocated roughly around $300,000. So we have accumulated X amount of dollars, borrowing 4 years in advance with this request.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Dolly.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Gillen.
Aye.
Parker.
All right. I need a first and second motion on a resolution approving an engagement letter with DA Davidson.
So moved as read.
Second.
Thank you. And discussion.
Mayor, members of the council, and city manager. The engagement letter is mainly for some financing that we may be doing with DA Davidson. when we do infrastructure improvements in the industrial park. Right now, Charlie's going through an amendment to the urban renewal plan. And part of that is to work with CernQuest to put in some infrastructure improvements. Later on, we'll be looking at doing some financing, probably TIF revenue bonds to finance those improvements. And this engagement letters hires DA Davidson to do the underwriter services for those bonds.
By improvements, you mean roads, sewers,
Yes.
electric, water?
Thank you, Andy. Any other questions? Steve, any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Sandra?
Toby,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewland,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
I need a first and second motion for resolution approving a major site plan application for general manufacturing production and industrial services, concrete mixing and setting at 1700 North 14th Street, Cementek.
So moved as read.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Hi, yeah, Cementek is currently a 107,000 square foot structure that is located at 1700 North 14th Street. They are looking at constructing 2 additions that total about 9,800 square feet to their building. Just really quickly going through a few things on this. When we looked at this site plan, current property does contain an existing outdoor storage yard. That outdoor storage yard includes a mixture of essentially Portland concrete surface and a gravel surface. The gravel portion of it is mostly in the rear yard. Our city code does allow for gravel with council approval as long as it is contained in the rear yard. So I just wanted to point that out. The other portion that we noted in here, that the current outdoor storage yard is currently surrounded by a 6-foot chain link fence. Our code does require that any outdoor storage yard be opaquely screened from the public view. So they are proposing to add slats into the chain link fence to meet the screen requirements. Last thing to point out here, when we looked at the open space requirement, so the zoning does require a 20% open space requirement. When you look at just their current site right now, they do not meet that 20% open space requirement. They're well under that, but again, it's an existing site, so they're trying to work with what they have. However, Cementek does own that parcel just to the north of their facility, and when you include that parcel within that calculation, they're well within that 20% open space. Lastly, we looked at current trees on site. They're a little under on the required landscaping for trees. However, we did not get good survey from them necessarily on the existing tree line that is on the east side of their property there to the rear. But just from a windshield survey of my own, and if anybody else has been out there, they can probably attest to this. They probably do meet the tree requirement if we take into account the existing trees on site, but we did not get a count of those for the site plan. So, but again, I'm very confident that they meet that requirement when we take those into account. So with that, that's a quick summary, and any questions we have to answer them.
Toby,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewland,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
All right, I need a first and second motion on resolution approving a plat survey. Charlie, I think we still have a typo here. Okay, plat of survey for Dowling Construction for property located at 2105 North 3rd Lane.
Make a motion as read.
Thank you. All right.
Went a little bit too quick there again. Really quick. So, and this can be disclosed too, because this did go to Planning and Zoning Commission, but Medicap Pharmacy is looking at relocating their current facility along Jefferson Way there, right at the corner of Euclid and Jefferson out to Summercrest Hills on this lot. Smaller facility, so they don't need the total 1.45 acres that is currently available in this lot. So they are looking at splitting about a 0.81 acre site off from that, which will leave a remainder of 0.64 acres. So when we look at the land use map, the future land use map for Elevating Dinola, the property's designation is regional mixed use. So the proposed use does meet that. And just so council is aware, the site plan should come forward at your second meeting in August. We did have this on the Planning and Zoning Commission's agenda at their last meeting, but there was a few things on the facade that the applicant needs to work out before that comes forward to council. So that will be on a future agenda. But any questions on the Plata survey, be happy to answer them.
So are they gonna sell off that 0.6?
Yeah, my assumption is they're holding on to that so they can just market that piece of ground and see if there's a user for it. So there's a little bit they're going to have. So we'll get into the site plan when we get there, but the site plan shows a common access driveway that's going to be used for both of these parcels. And they'll also have some joint detention on there as well, stormwater detention. So they're kind of planning the entire site out right now. They're just kind of splitting it. And my assumption is so they can sell off that 0.64 acre piece.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yep.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dolby,
Aye.
Leach. Aye. Richardson.
Aye.
Great, I need a first and second motion for resolution approving a preliminary plat for Trailview Plat 2. And actually, I think we had it wrong on the agenda. It is right, correct, Ben? Trailview?
Yes.
Trailview Plat.
Yep.
Yes, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Second.
and I was just going to note that the agenda did note Trail Ridge Plateau, and that was completely my fault. I get mixed up on subdivision names sometimes, but it should have said Trail View. So really quick, this is a preliminary plat for a 9-lot residential subdivision. The 9 lots do include 21 townhome dwelling units, which would be on 1 lot, and the other 8 lots would just be single family lots. The plat also includes 1 outlet and 1 street lot, both of which are proposed to be dedicated to the city. The Parks and Rec Commission, I did note in your memo here that they were to review the dedication of the outlot. They did review that and they have agreed to take that on. So we'll be looking at possibly some parkland that could be put on that outlot. The unique thing with that outlot is it's adjacent to which would be the McVeigh Trail extension. So we can look at some things, possibly putting some picnic tables, equipment, and possibly even a trailhead in there. So we'll look at that once we do get that, but council is not accepting dedication of that lot right now. I just wanted to point out that that is the proposal in the preliminary stage. When we do get to the final plat, we'll actually take ownership of that lot if you so choose. So looking at the subdivision, East First Avenue is currently stubbed in on the west side of the property and will be extended through this development where it will terminate in a cul-de-sac. The applicant did note in their submittal that East First Street cannot be extended to the property to the east as it would dam up the existing drainage way on the east side of this proposed plat with a street crossing. And the applicant further noted that there is a significant amount of offsite drainage that flows through this area from south of East 2nd Avenue or Highway 92 that would require the proposed homes to be significantly elevated to avoid stormwater overflow. I did note in the memo that Elevating Indianola does note, that's the comprehensive plan, does note in the roadway development policy that streams and creeks can make development of a grid roadway network difficult due to the need for culverts and or bridges, in addition to their greater potential for disruption to the environment resulting from tree clearing and extensive grading operations. To be cost effective and environmentally responsible, the number of new creek crossings should be limited. In areas where construction is determined to be not feasible due to topography or other environmental conditions, other options such as cul-de-sacs and T-intersections should be considered by the city and the developer. So when we look at that policy, that's exactly what this developer is doing, and they've provided the justification to why that is there. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware. Typically, the city doesn't like to accept cul-de-sacs in most applications, but we do note that they are very necessary in some instances, and I think this is a great example of that. Other things that we're looking at this, the applicant is also asking for 2 waivers with this subdivision. Our current depth to width ratio requirement says that a lot's depth cannot exceed 2.5 times its width. There's a few lots in this development that do exceed that requirement, and that's just essentially putting lots in on the piece of ground that we have with the cul-de-sac does require a few of those lots just to be a little longer than we normally accept. So they're asking for a waiver from that. And then the other waiver they're asking for is we do require a 30-foot buffer park, which essentially is a landscape easement. And that would be required in this application on the west side of lot 1 where it borders 1906 East 2nd Avenue. The reason for that is this is a residential subdivision and that parcel is zone C2 commercial. However, when we look at the actual use that's taking place on that parcel, it's currently used as a single family dwelling. It's not used as a commercial parcel. So because of that, the applicant is essentially asking for a waiver from that requirement, stating that if that parcel does ever develop as a commercial parcel in the future, that the landscape buffer can be put in on that parcel at that time. And that is something that we would take care of during the site planning process if it were to ever develop as a commercial parcel. So with that, I do know that the applicant's engineer is here if there's any questions on any specifics on the plat, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I have a question for the fire chief. Is that radius big enough on that cul-de-sac, chief, for your fire engines?
96, so yeah, that's what the.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So it's a 96-foot diameter, no radius. I'm getting confused on the two of them right now, but yeah, it does meet the both the subdivision code and the fire code that we have.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. So and Chief's standing right next to me. And he's confirming.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we need to, on the waivers, we do those individually, don't we? Do those individually?
Part of them is motion.
So we'll just, okay, so we'll just go ahead and take roll then.
Dolby,
Aye.
Leach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Rocking them out there.
Okay, we will move in to the manager's report.
Okay, I'll try to put my New York voice on. How's that? A lot of things coming up. Sky Parade over the square is on the 21st, and I will be riding in that parade float, officially floating. So I'm pretty excited about that. Tractor Ride Parade is going to be going west on 92nd on 7/26. Warren County Fair, 7/27 through August 1st. The Fair Parade is on 7/30. The National Balloon Classic coming up on the 29th of July through the 7th of August, and the disc golf tournament on August 19th through 21st. Other events and work that's going on right now, our audit field work will be taking place on the week of August 15th, and that'll occupy our South Conference room. All of Ashland is now, that's being reconstructed with the square is now shut down as of this morning, and that work will continue through the fall and hopefully not far into the early winter. Howard Street will be opening up on Thursday, except for the intersection at Ashland. West Boston Phase 1 is progressing well. All the underground work which will be followed up by the paving work, and then Phase 2 will commence after that. Community development is doing well with their department, and remodeling is going on, and other departments are kicking in and helping out. So we appreciate the talents of our interim police chief helping with some of the drywall there, and all of our staff that's putting in extra hours to help with the reconstruction so that they can keep the costs low. Our fire chief already talked about the 4 new positions that are being interviewed for right now, as well as testing for the captain's position in 2 weeks. We have 3 interested officers in our K9 program that's going to be kicking off, and so the community fundraiser is kicking off as well, and we hopefully will get support from the community on implementing that program, which is underway. Parks and Rec is extremely busy, baseball, softball, and supporting all the many events that are going on in the community to make Indianola a great place to live. IT is receiving all of its AV equipment that's starting to come in, so we will be trying to outfit this room on a 5th week so that we don't impact any meetings. And the Selby survey study is going on with Human Resources right now, with everybody reviewing all of their job descriptions and whatnot to ensure that we're meeting market standards across the board. We are looking for some joint meetings coming up. IMU would like to meet with us, and we're tentatively looking at August 22nd. We may possibly push that into September. That IMU meeting is for 2 purposes. One, to talk about the capital improvement planning both from the city and the IMU perspective to ensure that we're working together on planning capital improvement projects going forward. And then we are also at a staff level starting to look at the 2080 agreement between our organizations and ensuring that all the needs are being met and expectations are being fulfilled. And so we're working through that. Chris and I have had a good working relationship and hope to perpetuate that through our respective staffs. School board superintendent Inns reached out to me and would love to set up a joint meeting of the school board and the city council as well. They meet on the 2nd and the 4th Tuesdays. We haven't actually talked. We just keep leaving each other voice messages. So we're not exactly sure of the date as of yet, but does anyone have a preference if they come here or we go there or we have neutral, anything like that? Okay, so I'll work on trying to set that up probably after a lot of these events and into September, or maybe even working with them and school kicking off. And then Steve has talked about having a tour of the water I want to call it water reclamation facility from where I come from, the sewer treatment plant that's under construction. We'll probably want to set up a few different tours so that we can have the council go out. It's a little bit easier in smaller groups, and it's also so we don't necessarily have to publish that tour. So I just wanted to reach out to the council to see if there was a few dates and times that work best for you to try to set that up a few weeks out so we can get it on your schedules. Is there a, I'm kind of figuring maybe at least one of those 2 times being on the evening or early on Saturday, and one maybe a daytime, but
Most times after 4.
Yeah, evenings.
evenings after 4.
Yeah.
All right.
Some of us aren't retired.
Yep.
Okay, evenings after 4 sounds good. Is there a particular day of the week that's best? That
Tuesday and Wednesday typically are
Generally.
better for me.
Yeah.
okay, I will reach out to Rick and HR Green and ensure that we find a couple of dates for you to choose from a few weeks out so it can get on your calendars without any conflicts. And right now, just so you're aware, we are working on some future agenda items for things coming up on some of your study sessions as well as council action. And those include parking on the square. We have some requests from the sheriff's office, but we also want to take that into consideration with maybe a more holistic look, taking into consideration the downtown square commission and looking at the policies that are related with that. So we have a meeting tomorrow morning with that group, and the sheriff will be in attendance with that. So there's good communication on that front. But we would like to propose possibly some ordinance changes that would come forward for you on that respect. Also with the downtown square, just looking at the ordinance and the potential policy with regard to road closures and the Main Street Iowa designation. Those are 2 other items that we want to look at coming forward. Fireworks was also discussed. We talked about having some stats coming in from the police department, from the fire department statewide, as well as the Des Moines area, so that can be before you for your consideration. We may also want to consider some sort of surveys or something like that. It's up to the council on how you would want to have us as staff bring you data to help you in your decision-making going forward that way. We are also looking at doing some potential policy updates, both coming from financial as well as from council, ensuring that we're meeting the needs of the public and have good policies and procedures moving forward. We've been talking a lot, and I've been getting different pressure coming at me about how we can better communicate with the public. And so we have both an internal and an external group that we're going to be working with. The external group has started to form and talking about how we might maybe even form a position or just look at different ways we can better market our area and better communicate as a city as a component of that. Before we bring any plans forward or anything for your consideration, I want to talk to the internal group of all of our staff, what we're doing well now and what we can potentially enhance. We want to, the next thing is budget planning. Andy is working on the budget calendar, which you approved this evening. and wanting to engage the council earlier in the budget process so we can get your input and your direction as elected leaders on how we utilize the public's funds. And we can be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources. And then the continuation of the discussion on the roads. A little bit later during the study session tonight, we're going to be talking about roads. Councilmember Schroeder couldn't be here, and that's very near and dear to her. And she's very much wanting to participate in that discussion as going forward. So a lot of what's being presented tonight is more informational, and for you to give us direction on the questions and data that you would like us to bring forward so that it can be evaluated by the full council going forward as well. I've been receiving lots of emails from the council on different code enforcement actions that Charlie and his crew are doing a great job with. But lots of those are going on, and parking and road signage requests and whatnot that we've been engaging with AP and his group on. More of that data will be coming back to you as well. Sorry, it's been a little bit crazy in my personal life over the last few days. We have officially moved here. Our house officially sold in Utah, and I have Iowa plates and Iowa license. Officially here. So
Welcome home.
that's right. I brought them home. So that's going on. Also, I'm continuing to meet with government leaders, everyone from the sheriff to even past elected leaders who have reached out to me as well. And we've had one-on-ones and whatnot. Trying to eliminate the silos, build better relationships across the board, school district and the college and everything, county. Continue to meet with public work, or excuse me, the police department. I want to get with all of the employees eventually, but I'm down to only 3 left. 2 officers and 1 admin, and then we'll have all of that at hand and be able to kick off the next steps in replacing our chief in that regard, and continue to work on meeting with various boards, the library board, and the school and things like that to keep it perpetuate on with the planning of our facilities that are coming up. I will be out of town on July 27th to the 29th. And I think, also the mayor mentioned that we not only were at the governor's press conference, but earlier that morning, the interim chief and I and the mayor met and took a tour of the Altoona Police Department and City Hall, and that was a great facility to tour. So a lot of good things in the works. Busy as I'll get out. So,
Mayor, could I add a couple of items here, a couple of questions too? I think we all probably got the League of Cities magazine on the Iowa League of convention in September in Waterloo. I don't know how many of our staff is going. I would think it would be a good idea to have 1 or 2 of the council members attend if we could. But maybe we can discuss that at a later meeting as well. Ben, on your question about a survey, I know the Indianola Advocate is doing a survey online on fireworks. I think just go to indianola-ia.com and you can probably pick that up. There's been, I don't know how many responses they've had on that, but they are doing an online survey on that.
Excellent.
I would also suggest to the council, and again, this is just my opinion, but when I was in the state legislature, we met annually twice a year with councils. I met with the Indianola City Council and I represented Carlisle and Norwalk at the time. I met with them as well. I would suggest that we ask our senator and state representative to come in probably late October, early November, and discuss items of interest to the city that perhaps maybe might be on the agenda for state legislature. That was usually a typical thing we did. And then we get the city's perspective of what things we need to change or look at. Maybe fireworks things might be one of them down the road, but who knows? But again, I would suggest that too. Just some items of suggestion.
Great, thanks, Steve. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, we will take a quick 5-minute break and then we will come back for study session.
All right, thank you.
are in study session. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. All right, so the first item on our agenda is a presentation regarding the North 6th Street and East Yard Avenue sub-area plan.
All right, that's me. So we just want to take a few minutes to introduce our project so that it's familiar to you. We'll be coming back then in the future with some potential scenarios so that, you guys can give us your feedback at that point, but this is just kind of an introductory, so we won't take a whole lot of time for this. I'm Sean, I'm the project manager. I've also got Emily with me. She's a project planner. Shannon is QA/QC, so she'll be going through and reviewing all the plans as it comes out. Chris is a team leader, so we're all under him. And then we've got Kyle Martin, the president of Martin Gardner Architects. He's going to be doing facilities needs assessment for AP and his group with Public Works to find out how much space they actually need, if this area is maybe a good fit for them, or if we need to look at other areas in the future inside this area plan. So really what we're doing is gathering, analyzing information. That's where we're at this point. We've heard from one working group so far. We did present to P&Z last week. We didn't get any comments from them at this point, but they're aware of the project as well. And we went through kind of the same thing. So, looking at the housing, the economic development in the community, what kinds of things might be good fits in this area if the area was to develop or become something different in the future. Where we're at on the project is we're really kind of at the front end of it. Like I said, we're kind of going through the analysis right now, doing some fact finding, coming up with some good ideas that we're eventually going to get back to you folks. We're going to present to the working group again here in September, and then in October we're going to have a public open house. I think we want to try to do it at the school, it sounds like, so that we can have it located in the neighborhood in that area and get the feedback from the community at that point, where we'll have some things that they can throw darts at and have a real concept at that point. So, and then, like I said, we'll be back here in September to show you folks that as well.
And that would be Emerson Elementary. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
Emerson.
Thanks. I didn't have the name on my tongue.
That's
so
all right.
I appreciate it. This is the project boundary right here. So Hy-Vee's located here. It's along Jefferson Way. One thing I did want to mention is this commercial pieces that are here are not going to be changed by this study, or there's not going to be suggestions to change it. This is working here along Jefferson, but what's going on Jefferson could potentially lead to other activities or benefit this area in the future. So it's really to build off of what's working here along Jefferson. So we want to make sure that people don't think Hy-Vee's going away or we're going to say something like that in this plan. That's just to show that those areas that are working are part of this area. Like I said, we're going through kind of a community profile, so we're looking at the stats of the community based on the Des Moines Metro and the surrounding area. How do you guys rank and stack up as far as age, population, per capita income? How much money can people afford to spend here, and the housing market as well is part of that. Looking at the existing plans that you have, so we just want to make sure we're not reinventing the wheel. Anything that we are suggesting fits nicely into anything that's been suggested in previous plans. We've gone through the strategic plan for 2020 and the newest one, 22, that you guys just finished. The city square master plan, the city square is just off of our area, so the bike trail kind of leads into that and other things. So we just want to make sure that we're focusing on everything that you've done to date. Commercial outlook. So again, doing a retail market analysis, finding out if there's any retail that people are spending money outside of the community. Can you capture that money here in the future? What kinds of businesses would maybe be good potentials for that? So if there is commercial that's developed in that area, we have some ideas of, hey, this type of business might be a good fit. This could potentially be here in the future. And then a housing outlook. So multifamily, single family, really taking a look at holistically what the housing looks like today, a snapshot in time, and where we can maybe make some improvements, or maybe things that would be missing in other parts of the community that could potentially be in this sub area in the future. The existing land use, so you got all kinds of uses. The purple here is residential, so you've got a really nice established neighborhood. You got a trail that runs through. You got some industrial, some parks, automotive, retail. So you got really a snippet of everything here currently. So there's a lot of building blocks to work off of. If things were to change in the future, and we do know that the county's leaving this middle area here, city has a property here as well. And there's questions as to, is the co-op going to be there forever? What's going to happen with that property? There's a helicopter pad out there. What's the future of that? Is that something that could be moved to other parts of the community and maybe something developed here in the future? So, we're kind of looking at this as a 10-year and then a 20-year, looking out pretty far. Things could be, very different than what they are today. And that's kind of what this study is, to give you guys a good footing. So if you have developers or you have interest, or this area starts to really become of interest, you have a well thought out and some backing from the surrounding neighborhoods. Zoning is currently light industrial in the middle, and then, like I said, it's got that nice established residential, and then established commercial that's sandwiching that area. And then we went through and just did a quick windshield survey. So just drove around the neighborhood and said, on a scale of 1 to 5, where do we feel things fall? So this is kind of an opinionated, but it gives you, from an outside perspective, your immediate feel in what kind of is going on in the area here. So through our working session that we first had here right before the 4th of July, we got some really good input, and we were able to capture that. So I know that's hard to read on this slide, but if you want to access this, I can definitely send this to everyone. I think Charlie's got this exact map here, which kind of laid out what we talked about, any of the comments that were made, and it's really just in what's going on currently with issues and what are some potential opportunities that we have in the future to build off of. So really, we just open it up to any questions, comments that you all have. John was at that first meeting, and Steve, I think you were on the phone still. He was at the meeting as well.
Yes.
We had a little smaller group than what we would have liked because it was around the 4th of July, but we know that at the second meeting, we're going to actually come with some concepts. So everybody can look at what our concepts are, and we can start narrowing that down into a really good vision for you all in the future.
Great, any questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right. We have Dave Mueller from Snyder and Associates will present information regarding the South K Street paving project.
Good evening. This is a follow-up to a study session of some time ago where we're starting to get a little bit into the weeds. We've got some a little more specific things to talk about, and looking for some direction. So the objective, again, is looking for some direction and getting into a little more detail on the methodology. That's really, if you remember, what the council's role is to hire that darn engineer and bond counsel, and then set the methodology. And that's really the step that we're at. You have some more work to do coming down the line as this project continues to unfold. But right now we're going to try and focus on that methodology. So it's kind of a who, what, why, when type of approach. What are we assessing? What projects benefit, and where are we going to assess that? And then how do we spread the assessment? And then, of course, the special considerations every project has is unique. And this project is no different. There's a lot of unique things going on this project. So what to assess? This is the same table that we looked at last time. And this is, again, the Iowa Code gives you some authority to assess a number of different things. And what we've looked at in the past is kind of following past practices where the sidewalks are assessed, and pretty much the paving, subbase and subgrade is really all that you've assessed for in the past. All these other items you have been considered general benefit and have not been included in the assessment. So what does that look like? When you do the math, we separate it into two divisions. One division for the sidewalk, because we use a different method for just that assessment, and we do the roadway paving. So, and again, we're only assessing a 25-foot wide street. We're not assessing the 31-foot wide street that we're building. We're only doing the 25-foot. So it's kind of a theoretical roadway that we're assessing. When you go through all the math and using relatively current prices, we're looking at assessing about $1.7 million of a $5 million project. I will note on this slide that this is construction costs. This isn't project cost. There's additional project costs that are over top of that, but we're just talking about construction. And this is also where we get into some of the questions. As it goes to sidewalks, this is a unique project. Your ordinance says you build a sidewalk on both sides of the street. If there's curbs, this particular project has some topography challenges. And through the concepting, the city council has approved a 10-foot trail on one side and no sidewalk on the other. Okay, so if we assess those that sidewalk, we really have three options. We assess a 5-foot sidewalk to only the folks that are on the east side of the street, because that's where the sidewalk is being built. Or we can assess a 5-foot sidewalk to both properties, because we've decided that that's the pedestrian facilities that we need for this project. Or depending on where you go with your trail ordinance, we assess a 10-foot trail evenly on both sides of the street. If we would choose to do that, it would probably be included in only one division. Instead of having two divisions with different assessments, we would combine those into one division. I think that is something that is, we need to look at and how we want to approach that going forward. I know there's some proposed changes in how we treat trails in the city, in developments and otherwise. Again, timing matters as those changes happen and the ordinance changes. If it happens at a different time than these assessments go through, we want to be consistent with how the city approaches that. So that's really kind of the first technical challenge, if you will, or policy challenge, honestly, that we're looking at. The paving that is being assessed. Also, I talked about the width, but it's also just the mainline paving. The side street tie-ins are not part of that assessment calculation, because again, it's a theoretical roadway. The 1.7 million is that's a significant amount. It lands at about 31% of the estimated construction cost right now. When all said and done on the Iowa Avenue project, we assessed just under 25% of that cost. I think it was like 23.9 or something like that. So that's kind of in the ballpark of the range that gets assessed. So now, where do we spread those costs? And that is, we talked about last time a lot about the Flint formula and the 300-foot boundary. So we typically include all those parcels that fall within 300 feet or halfway to a parallel street. So that comes to question number 2. Is the cul-de-sac a parallel street? Because it doesn't go all the way through, but it's still parallel with K Street, but it's a cul-de-sac. So that's a little bit of a nuance. Our experience says that we would recommend that you treat it like a parallel street, even though it's a cul-de-sac. It's relatively long. It goes somewhere. And again, we're trying to equitably and fairly spread the costs to all the benefited properties. So this drawing shows this is our assessment boundary. That's 300 feet. And just as luck would have it, it kind of lands in a sort of sloppy place with a lot of different angled lot lines, and it's going to be a complicated calculation there. So what we would recommend is, instead of having this 300-foot boundary, that we would come back down here to about halfway, which would land about in here, and it would curve and follow that road, and then stop at the end, and then jump back out to the 300 feet, because that's where the parallel street lasts. So that's a little bit more. That's a little bit more complicated than normal, but I think, again, our objective is to try and spread that assessment evenly and fairly with all the benefited properties.
Dave, so like that one parcel there on the corner, just above lot 6 there,
Like lot 9 here,
or 9, or what's the one right above 6?
like this one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that land's outside of the 300-foot boundary, so there's no assessment.
So even though they're gonna benefit from the pavement of K Street, they're not gonna be assessed.
Right. As is the rest of them. Now, there is some precedence in Indianola. South Y Street had a voluntary assessment where the neighborhood got together and contributed to the paving of that street to move the project forward, fairly nominal amount. It was voluntary, and I think they did that, kind of as a petition to get the project off center. So there's nothing saying that they couldn't approach the city and say, hey, we're really excited about this project. We'd like to do a voluntary assessment. We have the precedent for that. We also have some of the agreements that went into that. So we talked about that early on in the project. But at this point, that 300 foot's that's kind of a hard and fast rule for us.
I didn't know if I was lot 6, I would be, it's a hard pill to swallow, right?
Right.
You get assessed, and the guy right to the west of you doesn't get assessed. So
Right, yeah.
And you're saying to come off of that and then you're gonna go down and not assess those corner lots?
So those will be assessed. They'll be will just be half the distance between this street and this street. So that'll land like right in here somewhere. So all these lots would be assessed. Anything inside of this halfway, all those lots would get, lot 9 there would have a small assessment. I mean, it gets kind of tricky. Half is half. You have to draw the line somewhere. And this is kind of an interesting little spot on the project for sure. So as you look at the larger the larger piece, here's the document that we created that is the assessment district, and this is pretty simple, just a 300-foot swath. Here's that dash line is the assessment boundary on this side and this side, and you can see there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of the property ownerships. Some of the assessment boundary is actually deeper than some of the lots are, so we're assessing a parcel that doesn't have direct access to the street. But again, that as it diminishes, it goes away. So that's how that Flint formula adds some fairness to that distance and separation. Couple things of note here. The assessments start at the beginning of the paving, not at the section line, which would make figuring easier. Nope, we're start at the beginning of the paving, wherever that paving would end. Even if it's in the middle of this property, that's where the assessment boundary would start. It also, if you remember, the entire K Street project includes a relocation of J Street as a future phase. And just as a note, council policy back in 2001 established that if you have a paved street, you can't be assessed for a new paved street or a relocated or reconstructed paved street. So that would that segment of the project at some point in time would not be eligible for assessment based on council policy. I talked a little bit about the side streets, that the side street paving is not included. There's not a separate boundary for the side street paving. If we decided to add a quarter of a mile of the side street, we would probably add another division and another assessment boundary. But as the project stands now, we're just paving K Street. We're doing some tie-ins on the side street. So that side street paving is not part of the boundary and not part of the assessment total. There's the statistics on the number of parcels that are impacted, 42 total, 39 owners. Some of the lots are currently owned by a developer and are for sale. There's also a significant amount of city-owned land. All these parcels here, these 3 parcels are all city-owned land. And yes, the cities can assess themselves, which is really kind of part of the game. That's one of the things that makes it fair. So we talked a little bit about that, the Flint formula and the size of the property, that it's really, the assessments are figured by the total assessable cost divided by the benefit units. I know there's a lot of talk about front foot, there's a lot of talk about linear foot, things like that, but it really is, the formula is the assessable cost divided by the total number of benefit units. And the benefit units, again, are calculated by the Flint formula where they dissipate over the 300 feet. So at 301 feet, there's zero benefit. And at right next to the right of way, it's a full benefit point. So that's a pretty straightforward calculation. The other part that makes assessment projects fun are the other factors that need to be considered. How the property is being used, the unique features, the access, and the valuation. We'll go through these one by one. So the use of the property that abuts the project can create some options. First, if it's an agricultural use, it can go through the ag deferment process where in Iowa, you can, if you're growing hay and you're assessed, you can defer that assessment for up to 25 years. And after 25 years, if it's still agricultural use, the assessment drops off. But in that meantime, the assessment is a lien on your property. So the property owners can decide whether that's right for them. For example, on Iowa Avenue, we had some agricultural use and they elected to not take that deferment because they're interested in developing it, didn't want the lien. So that, we're going to sit down with every single property owner on the project as we go through these other factors. The other issue is there's some development property on this project. There's some property that's had a preliminary plat been submitted for review, and that creates an opportunity for some developers like to go through the petition and waiver process. And the petition waiver process is kind of a fancy word for development agreement for a property. Why would they do that? There's a couple benefits. If it's a large parcel, they can take that assessment and spread it over their entire development. As a city, you can only go to that 300 feet, but they can take that cost and then when they develop, spread it out over the whole area so they can dissipate that. And then it also, again, avoids having a lien on their property so that they get clear title to it, that somebody wants to develop it, they can sell portions of it faster without having to perfect those liens. So there is some development ground on the project. Again, that's one of those things that we'll have to work through project by project. There's also a number of large single family residences on multiple acres. This is an issue that we've addressed on the Iowa Avenue project and other projects before that, where we create the opportunity to enter into a deferment agreement or a development agreement where we look at what an equivalent assessment would be for a large lot. And then they would sign a development agreement that's all the assessment that they would pay unless they develop it. If they develop it and build 5 more lots, 5 more houses on that and subdivide it, then it would be fair that they pay, each lot pays its assessment. So that's something that would be an opportunity to talk about. It was very successful on our last project. Kind of again put some balance into the assessment and keeps the project moving forward.
Hey, Dave, is that what we did with some of the large lots on East Iowa, or I'm sorry, on West Iowa, west of Kenwood, that goes up the hill towards Wilder Elementary? Is that what we did there?
No, you didn't back in those days.
Okay.
That was one of the basis of that legal action. And if you recall, the court arbitrarily reduced the assessment cost as part of that settlement. If you remember how that.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but that's
just the way that we would get in front of that and look towards again, a situation where if it were to stay a single family residence, forever, if you will, then they pay their fair assessment. But if they develop it, they don't get the benefit of a reduced assessment. And now 5 lots or 6 lots or whatever the size is. I think that's again a fair thing based on land use.
So it's kind of so you would kind of say it's kind of like the ag deferment, except we're talking about a large residential lot, and in that sense, would that kind of be a fair assessment or a fair analogy?
Yep, very close.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. So other unique features are kind of topographical and environmental in nature. And these features, this is a little bit more of a unique approach, having a reduction for steep slopes, environmentally sensitive areas, floodplain, floodway would be an example. The issue with some of these is that they can be changed. I mean, you see lots of earth being moved and slopes being flattened. You can fill in floodplains. So it's not necessarily a forever situation. So there's 2 different approaches. Here's another question that we're coming at. Is a reduction in the actual benefit units for these situations, or is it a reduction in the assessment? And I think, again, back to what the formula is, if you reduce the number of benefit units, then the benefit units cost more each. If that denominator gets smaller and you reduce the benefit units, then the benefit units are more expensive per each, because you still have that total assessable cost. If you reduce the assessment, typically that's done through a development agreement. And again, our experience in the 90s, Clive was very aggressive and had a strong economic development approach, and they worked with a lot of property owners and entered into petition and waiver agreements where they reduced some of the benefits or some of the assessment conditional upon the use of the land. So in other words, if there was some steep slope and they brought in a bunch of fill and flattened it out and built a commercial property, well, then that's not unbuildable slope, right? That's a buildable slope because you went through the work to do that. And then that triggered some follow-up assessments, which I think is a unique approach. It's a pro-economic development kind of stance. And fundamentally, the city somebody has to pay for the cost of the project, and then that has to land somewhere, right? So if the assessments are reduced, or even if the benefits are reduced to some extent, the city has to come up with those funds. So it changes the budget picture, if that makes any sense. But again, that is a policy level decision and a budget level decision where those things have to be looked at with some in some detail. There's other unique features on this project, which is exciting. Maybe. Yep. And that is restrictive easements. On the Iowa Avenue project, we had a significant private utility that was very, very restrictive easement. They couldn't build anything on top of it. They couldn't build anything within 25 feet of either side of it. It was very, very restrictive. So we did reduce the benefit points for that area. On this project, we do not have that situation, but we do have some public utility easements. We do have some permanent drainage easements that we need to consider. Typically, those are not reduced. Because they are not as restrictive. Public utility easement is not very restrictive. You can still, that's still part of your yard. You can't build a building on it, but it's still within the setback areas typically, and it's not as restrictive of a use. We have not seen anything yet on the title work that we've done. Conservation easements sometimes come up where no one will ever build anything here ever. There's some of those, like woodland protection easements, if they're in perpetuity, that's something we're going to have to address. We have not seen any of that in the title work that we've done, but that could come up if it does exist. But again, nothing right now. Another factor is the direct access that we talked about, and this is where the side streets come into play. And typically, what we see is that if you're on a side street, you already paid for the side street, you were assessed once for that street, and now you're being assessed for this street. Typically, we see a 30% reduction for those side streets. If you have been assessed, if you will, for your subdivision street, or if you're going to be assessed for, let's say, 12th Street's going to be paved someday, and that property owner will be assessed, there's a reduction, so you don't double dip, if that makes any sense. The other thing that we ran into is de minimis assessments. And so if you look at this parcel, it's on a side street, so it's going to be reduced by 30%, and it's this little tiny triangle at the far end of the assessment boundary. So there's not going to be very many benefit points. That's not going to be a big assessment. And one of the things that we talked about in the past, that the previous council had an appetite towards waiving de minimis assessments under $1,000. Bond council didn't think that was a good idea at all. That they recommended strongly that we go through the process, which we did. And I think we had an assessment for $40 on the Iowa Avenue project. I know that, seems kind of silly, but again, as we look forward towards paving gravel roads, the assessments is a really fair way to fund those projects, and following the rules all the way to the end. I think that's good advice from bond counsel. So I thought I would share that one. The last thing that is the a special consideration is the value of the property. The assessments cannot exceed 25% of the value of the property, but the value of the property is set by the council, and it's not the value today, it's the value at the end of the project. So it's a future value of that property after the improvements are in place. And one of the things that you'll see if you go through on Beacon, there are lots that have I think a $50 value. Well, that's just part of that 5-year or 3 years where the value doesn't improve while the developer is selling those lots. Well, we all know that's not the value of that property. So there's a process where the city council sets those values. In the past, what has occurred is a panel has been created with people from the community that have real estate backgrounds, and they go through that process, kind of a little bit of an arm's length process, that they're real estate professionals that make a recommendation of what the value of each and every one of the parcels. And we would encourage doing that again. I think that just is good practice, so that the engineer is not doing it, the bond counsel is not doing it. There's a third party that is in the business that's setting those values. So I would recommend we follow that from the last process. So again, this is kind of the mantra from the very beginning, is that, fair, equitable, consistent, but specific to the various properties that you're dealing with and the unique situation that we have to face, and also documented. And that's part of this process is that methodology is documenting the methodology very clear. So quick recap is the project cost. And again, what we're talking about is assessable cost. I wanted to kind of put a range on that. Again, this is a trial assessment. It's not preliminary assessment. So this is not written in stone. And kind of wanted to point out, as we did a quick look, 16% of the benefit points are the city's property down the south. So, right off the top there, 16% of that cost is going to be borne by the city. That's in the neighborhood of $270,000 in rough numbers. So again, your properties are benefited by the project. kind of went through the numbers with the potential ag deferred parcels. There's 19 parcels that have non-direct access. A lot of those come in the subdivisions on the south end of the project. There's 8 to 10 parcels that have pretty steep slopes that we might look at as part of, again, we're recommending that that's part of a development agreement and not part of a benefit point reduction calculation. We do have one in the floodplain that we have to deal with, and 5 single-family parcels. So to also recap the questions that we talked about how to deal with the sidewalk / multi-use trail, whether that is a project improvement that's included in the paving division, or whether that is a single-sided assessment division. We talked about the cul-de-sac parallel street. I think we talked about that, kind of got some decent direction on that. We also talked about how to deal with those unique features and kind of what the posture of the council is as it relates to economic development positioning in dealing with individual parcels. And then the valuation panel. Those were really kind of the main questions that I wanted to get some good direction on. So that's what we have as an incremental step towards getting closer to a final assessment methodology. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have at this time.
Steve, any questions?
No, I'm fine.
A lot of information.
Yeah, it's a
Send us that.
complicated project.
Certainly is.
Send us that PowerPoint.
As soon as I correct the 2 spelling errors that I saw. Darn autocorrect.
Otherwise, no, that is, thank you. Appreciate it.
You said
Thank
on
you,
the
Dave.
city-owned parcels, it was 16%. Is that $270,000 taxable land, or that would?
270,000 is 16% of the 1.7 million of
Oh,
assessable
the
cost.
assess-
That's kind of-
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that's just the
okay.
total assessable cost.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, well, that concludes.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Steve, for calling in.
No problem. That was well worth it. Thank you.
My vacation. All right. We don't, no, we don't motion to adjourn to be on study session right now. We're done. All right. I was like, sure.
Y'all later this week?